Good morning. My name is Stephen. My pronouns, this is very loud. Can we lower this a little bit? My pronouns are a he and a him, and you are very welcome here at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Palo Alto. We gather at different paths intertwine to deepen our spiritual lives, nourishing connections, learning from each other, caring for each other, tending to our world. We gather on unceded stolen land of the Tamian and Ramush people. We acknowledge these communities in the interest of truth and justice, awareness and gratitude. In order to dismantle the ongoing legacies of settler colonialism, we pledge to join the Tamian and Ramayush people whenever they ask for our solidarity. As of 2 weeks ago, masks now are not required, but are strongly encouraged. We express our mutual respect by supporting each other's decisions about masking, distancing, and other health measures. If you're here in person or have questions about the Unitarian Universalism or this congregation, please stop at the welcome table with the blue tablecloth and chat with our membership engagement coordinator, John Wright. Right off the bat. And now, let us begin our service. Oh, I'm sorry. Announcements. Okay, announcements today, Sunday. We have a Sunday service today at 10:15. You're all here. There is childcare only, but no summer school today, Sunday, 7-2. This week we have gardening at UUCPA tomorrow, sacred text reading on Wednesday at noon. By Your Side Singers meet on Wednesdays at 7:30 in room 4 and 5. Saturday meditation at 9 a.m. Sacred Text Reading Group is on Saturday at 4 p.m. And the Humanists at UUCPA this Saturday, 6 p.m. in the fireside room. There's also a forum discussion to be announced on Sunday, next Sunday, 7/9. So now let us services begin. If you have a chalice there with you, please light it along with me. Now, our sermon today and our guest minister is Our visiting minister today is Reverend Dr. Gene Foster. And I don't have the bio, but it's in your order of services. Okay. Okay, I will be lighting the chalice, and Dr. Gene Foster will be giving the centering words.
Good morning. The centering words this morning come from the Hindu tradition, and they're words that were attributed to Kalidasa. Look to this day, for it is life, the very life of life. In its brief course lie all the verities and realities of your existence. The bliss of growth, the glory of action, the splendor of beauty. For yesterday is but a dream, and tomorrow is only a vision. But today, well lived, makes every yesterday a dream of happiness, and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well, therefore, to this day.
Please join us in singing Spirit of Life, song number 123. That is 123 in the gray hymnal. The words are on screen and in the online order of service. So please stand as you are willing and able to. And let's join in singing Spirit of Life. This is caring and sharing. We now turn to our thoughts, the important events of our lives, which we wish this community to share. If you have a joy or concern you would like me to speak this morning, please post them in the chat box provided by Zoom. If you are on Zoom, and it will be shared aloud. In the future, you can always write them on one of these cards before the service, as explained at the top of the order of service. As we listen to the sound of the bell, let us all cherish and appreciate all that we have heard and bring things into our heart. Blessed be. Okay, at this time, we open up our gray hymnals to page 123, no, to page 346 in the gray hymnal, Come Sing a Song with Me. And please stand if you're willing and able. Grace is our daughter's middle name. I was very grateful to take this as a worship associate because Grace is my daughter's name, middle name. And I know about Grace. Throughout my life, I have always felt the presence of grace throughout my affairs. Perhaps some metaphysical, unexplainable phenomena. I don't know. Just living in that vibe and riding that flow was more magical and enriching then really understanding why I have or had developed this resilience or adaptability. Genetic, perhaps, whatever I concluded. It was the spring of 1994 in Orange County, California. This was our second pregnancy since 1991. The first was uncomplicated with the delivery of a wonderful baby boy. 3 months from that current late spring, there was to be a baby girl too. The kids would be 14 months apart. Play buddies? Perhaps. Somewhere at the beginning of the third trimester, my wife developed an onset of vaginal spotting that became increasingly worse, resulting in hypotension to the mother and a condition to both known as placenta abruption, a serious condition in which the placenta separates from the uterus before birth. Immediate bed rest was ordered by the doctor. It was a terrible, humid spring, stifling hot, and the air was thick gray with smog. As repressive as the weather was just described, this grayness also played hard in my heart. The uncertainty of the life of a child, this child, our child, laid sickly in my gut or wherever, like only the offering of bed rest, the luck of the draw, or the grace of that untapped energy may keep this child well. That spring-summer trimester was a long spread. Bed rest was difficult for Mary. The in-laws that prior autumn moved distantly to retire. There was no help. There was no care. We had to hire help. That diagnosis put my life in a distorted, slow motion. I so remember suffering a prolonged irritability, alternating with a still calmness at times. Almost internally surreal. Oh, there you go. Almost internally surreal. These were weeks best described as distant and numbing. The powerlessness was gnawing repeatedly. The question then always became the same, the answer continually as opaque. The tears of sadness came from the stomach pit straight to the inner eye. It was like a slow motion, deep weep. Sadness. Just like that spring into summer. Katie was born and developed no problems ever. Yes, Grace is indeed her middle name, and there she is at 23. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Is that working? Yeah. I usually don't speak, so be kind. A grace note is one of the ways of ornamentation in music. Grace obviously means elegant, poised, charming, or pleasing. Though where I grew up, German terminology was more common, so it was called a Vorschlag, which means a suggestion. Grace notes are printed much smaller than the principal notes. A grace note doesn't fit into the main harmony and either quickly or slowly slides into the principal note. How do you know? If there is a slur connecting the grace note with the principal note, that usually means it's not fast. And it has a little subname in Italian, appoggiatura. So this is an appoggiatura. Can we keep it on? Thank you. Without, you would hear this. And if there's a slash through the grace note, that indicates that it's a quick one. And in that case, it's called an acciaccatura. People don't use those very much. The words, I mean. Other common ornaments are mordents or trills. Sometimes ornaments, grace notes in particular, are originally composed as part of the musical fabric, and that starts around Mozart, Beethoven, and goes into later music. And sometimes there are improvisatory elements and will vary from performer to performer, as it is very common in Baroque music and, of course, jazz. When I played the last piece today, please enjoy many ornaments, as you know you would usually expect with Bach. But Jean also asked me to play a little bit before she starts the sermon, so I'm just going to give you a little bit of more ornamentation in music.
So I really appreciate Stephen and Veronica helping me out with this theme of grace notes, which is the title of my talk today. I really appreciate them taking this topic seriously, but from very different angles. The grace that Stephen experienced in a particular situation, but maybe more generally, and then the grace that comes in a particular kind of composition in music. So it's very good to be here with you this morning in a world that seems to have taken a disastrously wrong turn. And I, like many others, am struggling to re-enter my life fully. So much of my old life was shut down, and I haven't been able to bring it back. So although this is a day of independence, I'm not going to be talking about that, but I'm hoping that maybe by talking about the action of grace in a person's life, all of us and any of us might find some way to recapture or to rebuild or to go into something very new in life. For me, being a worship associate, actually, at the Unitarian Church in Berkeley, up in Kensington, one of the things that shut down for me was the church choir. I don't know if any of you have been to Berkeley, but the choir, they have a very good choir of about 30 members, sometimes I think more than that. And during the pandemic, what happened was that we had nights of Zoom rehearsal. Those drove me crazy. Trying to look at the music, read the words, read the notes, look over there somewhere in the distance, the director, and sing by myself, but knowing that it was going to have to be part of this group singing. It was really, really a hard thing to do, and so I shut down. I stopped doing it. And then we also had many nights of mask rehearsals where we were out in the atrium, which the doors open out to the bay. So it would be in the evening, and the wind would blow, and it was freezing cold. We came, dressed in all kinds of outfits and so on in order to survive that cold. And we also were standing far apart from each other. And to try to sing as a choir in that situation, for me, was I just couldn't do it, really. So I did shut down. And bit by bit, I withdrew. And the other things that I was very involved in were ballroom dancing, which shut down. Getting together with friends, that pretty much shut down. So I do admire Brian Baker, the conductor of the choir there in Berkeley, because he kept the music going, and some people more stalwart than me kept the music going, the choir going. But this morning, I want to talk about grace notes. I've titled the sermon Grace Notes. And those of you versed in music probably have a vision of those little notes that are written above, the tiny little notes that are written above the main note in the score. And I am doing a sort of play on those little grace notes because my main thrust in this sermon is not the notes. It's not the musical notes. It's my own notes about grace. The dictionary, by the way, calls these grace notes ornamental. I don't know if you think of them that way, Veronica, as ornamental.
That's why I said they're
Did you say ornamental? Okay. Yeah, the dictionary calls them an embellishment. In other words, what that means to me, not essential, not necessary for real music. And the real music lies in these larger notes that the grace notes are kind of stuck onto. But it strikes me that they come into the music as a kind of gift from the composer. That is a kind of grace. One dictionary definition of grace is a gift. It's a gift. It's not earned. It's not merited. It's not deserved. It's not worked for. Grace is a pure gift. So when I had an experience some months ago, and during all of the Zooming, of attending a Zoom poetry reading. And it was one by two very, very distinguished American poets. I'm not going to say their names because they might not want to be in my sermon, but anyway, they were very distinguished. And after they each read, there was a time for questions and answers. As it turned out, these two senior poets, many years before, had been graduate students at the same time, and they were focusing on poetry, and they had given a reading those many years ago, but this was the first time they were reading again together, many years later, as I say. And in this little discussion afterwards, one of them said, "It was grace, really. This coming together was grace, really." The organizer of the program didn't even know that these poets knew one another. So for me, it really struck a chord, and it made me come back to this thought of what is the meaning of grace, or is there grace? That I've off and on come back to, and then sort of forgot, and then come back to. But I remember, it makes me remember two particular experiences in my life that, in which I think something was at play that maybe the best word for was grace. The first one I'll call the Purple Hillside. It was a few months ago, probably closer to a year ago. I was struggling during these past 2 years to kind of find my way in this world that seems to have made a desperately wrong turn. Pandemic, self-isolation, health, money woes, and that horrendous Ukrainian war. The other day, when I was taking a drive in an attempt to sort of do something, in italics, to step out of this kind of depression. I wanted to do something. So I took a drive, and I was heading toward north of San Francisco on Route 1. I was going to end up going to the ocean. And I just remember feeling, so is this what my life is coming down to? And no matter how hard I tried not to feel it, I kept saying, is this all there is? When I suddenly went around a curve and came upon an entire hillside covered with purple sage. It was extraordinary, a massive amount of purple on the hill. And I couldn't not notice it. It shocked my eyes alive. And those tears of self-pity that I had been threatening me turned into kinds of tears, but they were tears of a kind of gratitude. This astounding hillside. It was beautiful. No other words, simply beautiful. And here, I was granted the vision of this hillside. I was granted the opportunity to witness such color and such beauty. And I thought, I'm lucky. I'm lucky to have been turned around this curve and come upon this magnificent vision. So this purple hill, I think of as a gift. I did not do anything to deserve it. It was an unmerited gift, let's say, from the universe. Or you could call it God. a gift from the universe to me. I didn't deserve it. I didn't merit it. I didn't work for it. One might call this gift of the Purple Hill an expression of grace, the unmerited love of God. But you could call it the unmerited love of the interdependent web of existence toward its creatures. I certainly fell in love. I felt this love kind of welling in me for the hill. And then I went right around the next curve and was given the gift of the Pacific Ocean. This experience of the purple, the incredible expanse of purple, made me think about a reading that I've really loved for many years from Alice Walker called The Color Purple. Some of you have probably read it. And it made me think of a particular passage that I've always been moved by that I'd like to read. My first step away from the old man was trees, Shug says to Celie in The Color Purple, talking about God. The air, then birds, then other people. But one day when I was sitting quiet and feeling like a motherless child, which I was, it come to me, that feeling of being part of everything, not separate at all. I knew that if I cut a tree, my arm would bleed. And I laughed and I cried and I run all around the house. I knew just what it was. In fact, when it happened, you can't miss it, she says. The theologian Matthew Fox writes, and this is a quotation, "In experiencing ecstasy, we are experiencing what our forefathers in spiritual traditions called grace. In experiencing ecstasy, we are experiencing grace." Fox lists a variety of what he calls natural ecstasies. The ecstasy of nature, of friendship, of sexuality, of the arts, of work, of serving. Fox says, when we get outside ourselves, get outside our own little worlds, and connect with the larger world around us, through any of these natural activities, we experience ecstasy when we get outside ourselves. The action of a supernatural deity is not demanded. Grace is available to us every day in the everyday world of here and now. What is required is a breakthrough in consciousness, in which we break through the insulation of our individual worlds into an awareness of our connections with all things. Our eyes are opened. We wake up. We see what is all around us. We see what is all around us, the gifts of the surroundings, the purple on the hillside. The second experience of something that I can only call grace, I call breakthrough on the psych ward. The language of breakthrough leads me to a second experience for which I can find no better name than grace. After graduating from theological school and before becoming minister in Modesto, I worked as a mental health treatment specialist on a locked psychiatric ward, dealing primarily with people diagnosed as psychotic at what was then called, it's been renamed, Contra Costa County Hospital in Martinez. What I became aware of in that experience is that while we as a therapeutic team could provide a context which improved the odds for a person, a patient, to break through to an acceptance of self-responsibility and a breakthrough into the long path upward in the healing process. So while we could provide a context that improved the odds of a person breaking through, there was something indefinable, something mysterious that actually enabled some to break through while others broke down. Something that enabled some to start an upward move after hitting bottom, while others continued to suffer at the bottom. What we did as a team made a difference, but there was still another ingredient. And also, the breakthrough did not simply depend on the effort of the person, the patient, on how hard that person worked or struggled. The effort of the patient made a difference, as did the therapeutic context, but there was still another ingredient. I came to call that ingredient grace. It seemed to be grace that enabled a person to break through rather than to break down. To break through. Grace that enabled a kind of turning, a shift from hopelessness to a perspective of hope. And although what we did could increase the odds and the patient could work very, very hard, ultimately something else came into play, which didn't depend on the patient's effort or our efforts. I called it a kind of grace. In fact, it often came as a result of letting go. And with the breakthrough came the ability to see the gifts of the surroundings, the grace available in the universe, the natural ecstasies, that love is a power, an energy force alive in the universe. It's action in everyday life, our own gracedness. So let's come back a moment to, to those little grace notes in music, perched above the big notes, like a butterfly lighting on the rose. Not embellishment, not ornamental, but an example of the magnificence residing in the simplest things. Sitting in my back patio in Berkeley, I'm offered by that small fenced-in world so many gifts, not merited, not worked for, not earned, not asked for, simply gifts. The hummingbird bathing at the mouth of the fish fountain. The early morning sunlight and the tops of trees. My hand, my fingers. The hummingbird's magnificent fanning wings. Gifts offered us by our own interdependent web of existence, of which we are a part. Such beauty inside the simplest, the insignificant things. What am I going to do? I hear myself ask myself. What am I going to do? Welcome, I answer myself. Welcome these simple gifts. Make yourself available to receive them. Make yourself available to receive these simple gifts. Someone is said to have asked that wise man Confucius, this thing called the way, with a W, capital W, this thing called the way, where does it exist? And Confucius is said to have answered, it is everywhere. It is in the ant. I was in my patio the other morning looking things over, as is my custom. I was surprised to see in the corner by the fence a little creature making its way hesitantly, head first, down the thin trunk of a bougainvillea. It was only slightly bigger than my fist. Its little pointed nose, pink nose quivering, black ears alert, eyes like bright black beads. It was a possum baby. There he is. It was a possum baby, fallen from the mother's pouch. The mother nowhere to be seen. So I'd found baby possums before in my patio, dead, often riddled by ants. This little possum had made it all the way down to the ground from the fence above and was snuggling among the skinny arms of a spider plant. So I had already fallen in love with it. I thought, it's probably best to leave it alone. Let it fend for itself. But then the mental picture of the dead ones reappeared. On Google, it said, little ones should be put in a shoebox on top of an old piece of towel and taken to a wildlife center. He was such a living, breathing, scuttling little creature under my gardening glove as I captured him and put him into the shoebox. Still questioning myself as to whether it really was the best thing to do. The man at Lindsay Wildlife Center in Walnut Creek was so nice as he transferred him from the shoebox to the animal cage. He called him Little Dude. The little dude was too small to make it on his own, he said. They would make him comfortable and feed him for a couple of weeks, then release him to the wild. That little dude took me out of myself for at least a little while. I think I was a gift to him, and I know he was a gift to me. The little dude took me out of myself and at the same time enabled me to be more myself. Took me out of myself and enabled me to be more myself. As I re-enter life fully and hopefully with grace on this thing called the way. The voice said, do what you can. Do what you can. I did what I could. Thank you.
I'd like to go back a moment and give a proper introduction to our visiting minister, Dr. Jean Foster. I received her bio, and perhaps I should have done this initially. Jean Foster grew up in New Orleans. She graduated from Newcomb College of Tulane University. She lives now in Berkeley, California, where she is a professor emerita at St. Mary College of California. She is former minister of the UU Society in Modesto and a former worship associate of UUCB. Her poems have appeared in numerous journals. Her first poetry book, A Blessing of Safe Travel, won the Quarterly Review of Literature Poetry Award. Her most recent book of poems, Goodbye, Silver Sister, was published by Northwestern University Press. Among her other books are Appetite, Food as Metaphor, an anthology of poems by women, and a critical work, A Music of Grace, the Sacred in Contemporary American Poetry, which asks the question, Is there still sacred ground to stand on? She is co-translator of The Living Theater, a selected poems of Bianca Torozzi, which won the Northern California Book Award for Poetry and Translation. Her latest poetry book, Is Your Form Became My Own. It was published by Ramsey Books in 2023. She has received grants from New York State Creative Artists Public Service Foundation, McDonald Colony, St. Lawrence Foundation, and Lannan Foundation, and is a former poet in residence in Tulane. And this really should have done first, and I wasn't prepared in my text script, and I'm sorry. So
That's okay.
okay, that's good. Okay, at this time, okay, with Veronica so patiently waiting, right, with such a lovely smile, I must stay on topic. This is the introduction of offering. We create this space together, not out of wood and glass, nor even out of electricity and binary codes, but out of our presence. Wherever we are today, we have chosen to be together at this time, hoping that together we can do so much more to make our lives into all that we dream of and make our world into the one we hope to see. If we are moved by gratitude to and for each other, we may choose to support with whatever financial resources we can this community that we are creating and that is creating us. You can use cash or check or the QR code or text info on the order of services. The offering will now be given and received. As a part of the Free Church tradition, we accept no money from any government body, nor do we that one, okay. Ecclesiastical authority, I'll do it better next time, in order that we shall remain free to govern ourselves. In addition to their annual pledges, each week our members and friends may choose to give an additional contribution as a public witness that we are and shall remain a free faith. With our offering, we will also assert that we are part of the independent web of existence, which is why 1 week per month our gift goes to the community organization we have chosen as our justice partner. Oh. Okay, and now we go on with the offering. Okay. And now, at this time, please join me in singing My Not Life Flows On in Endless Song. That would be page number 108, that's 108 in the Grain Hymnal. The words are online. Now, the script has changed, and it no longer has if you are standing and able, but we should stand for these songs. Okay, so if you are, unless someone tells me something else, so if you're able and willing to stand, please stand for My Life Flows On in Endless Song. Thank you. Beautiful. Pardon me, one second. Okay, as we extinguish this chalice, am I missing something? Oh, okay. As we extinguish this chalice, remember that this is just a symbol of the creativity and the warmth and the power and the flow within our hearts. So although the flame here extinguishes for the next 6 days and some, we carry the chalice in our hearts and in our souls and in our brains, knowing right from wrong and how to treat each other in the interdependent web of life. Whether online or here in the main hall, please stay after the benediction for our conversation time. We will begin with greeting time, a chance to speak to someone you haven't met before or after, or haven't seen in a while. Some weeks say, a month. Old timers, please greet a newcomer and see if you can find out enough about what brought them here today to introduce them to someone else they'll want to meet. Now, if you're online, please unmute yourselves, turn on your video, and touch hands virtually like this. No, like this. Like this, okay. While we say our benediction together. And if you're in the main hall or on the patio, reach out to hold hands if you are able, and the next person next to you are comfortable with that, or to show that you are connected in spirit. Cross your hands over your heart.
We can't do all of that at once.
Okay. Go out into the world in peace. Be of good courage. Hold fast to what is good. Return no one evil for evil. Strengthen the faint-hearted. Support the weak. Help the suffering. Speak worth with beauty. Speak love with word and deed. Honor all beings.